Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Before Sojo, the space it took to keep products on hand for as many houses as we have was crazy. Sojo eliminates that and allows us to utilize our space a whole lot better. I used to spend hours kitting amenities before we found Sojo. Having the right amenities for every reservation is crucial for the guest experience. Sojo has worked flawlessly so far. It has helped with the team tremendously because everything you need is all in one box. You just pick it up, drop it off, and assemble on site. These are real life testimonials from real life operators who are the decision makers within their company. All you have to do is really connect your calendar, choose your amenities that you want, and leave the rest to their automations. It's pretty simple, it's really easy, and it saves you a ton of time. So get with Sojo using the link in our show notes, or you can go to goodmorninghospitality.com/partners. Then, of course, use our link, and we would love to make sure that you guys are taken care of with our friends at Sojo. So make sure you connect with them today. And, of course, like always, we are back to the episode. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Monday, best day of the week. I win.
You
There
did
we
it.
go.
You did
Finally.
it. It's only because I had a long travel day. I'm not on my game to steal your lines today.
I've trademarked it, so yeah, good luck.
Every time you say it, you owe Michael a fee. Just kidding.
That's right. Yep, I'm gonna shut you down. Gonna shut this show down.
Imagine your own show just completely crumbles because of
Another level of petty.
it. I love it. Well, how was your guys' Thanksgiving? I know, Brandy, you had a Friendsgiving the week before when we had Jamie on, but now the actual holiday has passed. So did you actually do anything with the fam?
Yeah, I was just up in upstate New York in the Adirondacks with our house there with the whole family, and we had lots of food and outdoor activities. It was very cold. It's still jarring for me sometimes. Like getting on the plane and it's 80 degrees and getting off the plane it's 30 and snowing. You're like,
yeah,
this is different. But it was great. Just had rough travel. JetBlue really. They were not on their game yesterday. We had like a 4-hour delay, so I got home at 6 a.m.
Rough. I would have called out. I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm not joining the show today.
I'm not a quitter. I'm not going to leave you guys hanging.
Will definitely would have. I would have to be fair.
Yeah.
I would have to.
Yeah.
But I also wouldn't take a flight at that hour, and I also wouldn't fly JetBlue. So a lot of things different going on in this situation.
What about you, Michael? What'd you do?
But it fly Delta, but it's cold in New York, right? So we'll all be there together next week, which is exciting.
I know.
Know,
it's there's snow, so
can't wait.
I don't know if I've seen snow in like 2 or 3 years. So
it snowed for me on Black Friday. I got a good couple inches here in Colorado, and right before we see each other in New York, I'll be coming from a bachelor party in Scottsdale, so that's gonna be one hell of a trip.
Our guest today is Canadian, so I'm sure he's seen plenty of snow through the years.
Yes. Not very familiar with it.
Yes. Well, are we? Who's talking right now? You want to introduce him, Michael? Okay.
Go ahead.
I feel like we have a delay. Okay, so we have a guest, and obviously the show is not really guest focused, but when certain things happen in the industry, specifically news related, we try to find experts that could probably speak on some things better than we can, and this is definitely a topic I should not be speaking on highly. I'm not an expert in AI, neither is Michael, neither is Brandy, so we could all take a knee on that one. But we're really excited. This guy is Sam. He is the co-founder of Besty AI, and we actually got to meet previously, I would say like 3 months or a couple months before VRMA. Got to demo not only their product but meet the team, and really exciting stuff. So before I give too much away, on this long intro. We're going to welcome Sam, who's a co-founder of Besty AI. So let's give him a warm welcome.
Hello, hello.
Yeah. Hello. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. First of many, I hope.
Yeah.
First of many. Yeah, we've got our resident data nerd in Jamie, and now we've got our resident AI nerd in you, Sam.
We got merch. You recognize this, Will, from our little last meet and greet?
Yeah, definitely recognize the shirt. Recognize it. Looks a little bit more put together this time. So good job for keeping it all.
Yeah,
on.
anyone who attended that event probably seen this shirt at this point. Every flavor of it, I should say.
Yeah. every piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, before we go too deep down that rabbit hole, Sam, give us a quick 30-second overview, 60-second overview of not only your background, but with Besty and kind of leading into the AI space of short-term rentals and hospitality. I think a lot of our listeners come from both sides. We have hotel and short-term rental. So kind of how it all got started for you.
Yeah. So my co-founder and I first started this company actually just three and a half months ago, right when we first started speaking with you guys. We had previously had an e-commerce AI startup that worked in photos, all this cool rage around generating photos for e-commerce. That was kind of our niche, but found that over the last year, I was managing Airbnbs, starting with a few condos my family and I owned. I got roped into managing a portfolio of properties in Germany. So if you're ever in Hamburg or Neustadt or any small fishing town outside of Hamburg, you got to call me. So we got 35 properties there now, all within the last 8 months. And so as that was growing, and that's kind of a long story, but as that was growing, we saw everything happening with LLMs in the tech space. Thought, man, we're betting on the wrong horse here in images. So we decided to pivot the company. That was on July 27th, and we've just been off to the races since then. Obviously, starting an easy entry point is the guest messaging, which of course we can talk more about. You've seen a lot of that in the space since ChatGPT came out, but we have a much bigger vision for how it's going to, AI is actually going to change the way people manage properties in a very pragmatic way. It can pass the LSAT. This AI can write code. It can do a lot of things that we're barely even touching the surface of right now. So that's the big vision for us. So we'll get into maybe another time, but it's just showing what this AI can really do for property managers. Having been one myself and continue to be one today, my notifications are blowing up right now because it's check-in time in Germany. So
Nice. It always means a little bit more when founders of companies come from the space and understand the space they're serving. And probably especially in AI, because people are just uncovering all the different avenues that AI can be applied. And, if you have that firsthand experience of actually managing the properties, the avenues that are very repetitive that can be optimized better. So how did you go from 0 to 1 on the first iteration of Besty, from managing your own properties to automating as much as you can?
Yeah. So the first thing was building it for ourselves. So my co-founder, Arlo, has a ton of experience in this field. We basically wanted to build the scrappiest version possible. I, at the time, was managing the majority of my properties on Hostaway. So we used their open API, and our whole approach was not handing the keys over right away and expecting that it's going to respond perfectly on autopilot. So we basically built this autofill draft mode, where let's just see, given how much information we can throw at it, how well can it think of what the answer should be, and then give the owner, in my case me or the manager, the chance to approve it or edit it. And we thought that was just going to be the first couple of weeks, and then shift right away to autopilot. But we actually learned that the majority of our customers liked having the final sign off, because you talk about high touch. This is such I come from a hospitality background, restaurants, and people really care to have that final approval, and that's how you kind of gain trust over time. So we actually make it mandatory that all users have to send at least 150 messages with draft mode, both so that they can get comfortable with the AI, but also it gives us a chance to train it so we can see what edits they're making and then fine tune the model specifically for their tone. So we're taking a kind of a different approach. Instead of rushing people to autopilot, we're actually taking the draft mode first. And that was our original product, our first 1,000 listings using that. And then we obviously iterated and built a bunch of features since then.
Wow. Well, I think it's really interesting in the last year, especially, all of these great companies have come into the space. And I think the fact that you're a property manager yourself, that gives you like a special like look into what's going on, because like with any product, if you don't know what it really takes to use it, you don't really grasp what the use case is. But the reason that we've brought you on to be our resident expert for the day is because our favorite company to talk about on here, Airbnb, has made another acquisition. And it's a kind of secretive company that, at least that's what all the articles, it's very mysterious, called Game Planner AI. And so, it doesn't seem like the internet knows much about what's going on. So we'd love to get your take on what this acquisition means for Airbnb and what your theories are about it.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously really exciting when you see M&A in the space. Airbnb is built into quite a behemoth, and they have a track record, since 2011, they've done like 21 acquisitions, which is pretty cool because this is their first one since going public. So, about 3 years, you guys probably know that. And this is their one of 3 acquisitions that have been greater than 100 million. So Hotels Tonight, which, talk about another great Sam in tech, being a great one. I know you guys know him pretty well. And then Luxury Retreats being the other one. So the reason why I bring up at least Luxury Retreats is that Airbnb has like this kind of trend of, purchasing these assets. In LR's case, it was like all of that great luxury inventory, but then kind of white labeling it right into the guest experience. So I've rarely seen acquisitions they've made result in like more features from the host side, because they're like such a design driven consumer brand. So with Luxury Retreats, it was like, here's all this great inventory for another kind of affluent consumer category. With Game Planner, I think it's, at the end of the day, they're consumers trying to get more personalized travel experiences. And you can kind of look at that from looking at the founder of Game Planner. So it's kind of easy to connect the dots. The guy was the founder of Siri, which was obviously acquired by Apple. Went on to found Viv Labs, which went on to be Samsung's voice assistant. And I just think that what you're going to see is mainly them capitalizing on. We don't even know what the product is, but we know.
Yeah, I was about to say, I've heard it described as a $200 million acqui-hire.
Exactly.
But do you think there's actually tech behind it, or do you think they just had this vision and said it's going to cost you a lot of money to bring me in-house?
Well, I think the price tag was kind of a giveaway that it was more than just an acqui-hire, would be my guess. Because even if you looked at what happened with OpenAI, people were trying to fight when all that debacle was happening. People like Microsoft and even Salesforce, Mark Benioff on Twitter was like, hey, we'll match your offer. We'll pay you like $1 million a year or $2 million a year. I don't know what the staff was from Game Planner, but that all added up is not worth 200 million. So my guess is they probably, given that founder being so experienced in AI, I bet they have some sort of like proprietary model that's trained on hospitality and like personalized recommendations. And I think we could probably see something in the like summer release with Airbnb. I'm sure they'll have something in store for that.
In the last release, we saw a number of like AI light bits. I think one of them was around photos and the order of photos and how to describe your photos. But I don't think that's worth $200 million. What is worth $200 million to Airbnb? Is it top of funnel, just planning inspiration, or is it better matching like preferences and showing basically higher conversions instead of scanning through 20 properties before you book one? It's going to be the first or second one.
Yeah, I think there's my two guesses would be it's a option call for them. Like, they have 11 billion in free cash. 200 million is kind of a drop in the bucket. They've brought on that co-founder of, Adam from Game Planner as their VP of AI experience. So now they've basically bought an entire department. But on the tangible assets side, I think you can look at Airbnb as becoming so editorialized as more of like a feed, kind of like a social media feed, shopping by category. You basically have all the same metrics as a social media app. Like you browse through photos, you engage with something when you add it to your wish list. it's really easy to build a reinforcement learning engine around what preferences you have. And then there's also like general trends, I think, how people are changing. Airbnb has changed the way people have traveled, right? Like they'll see a destination and go there because of the destination, because they saw it on Airbnb, versus saying, I'm going to go to, Mexico or Bali or something. So I bet you they have some sort of really sharp way of serving up like really, really highly engaged recommendations based off of what guests are interacting with on the platform.
So the deeper we dive into AI, the more I kind of question, are we losing hospitality? And so how do we balance the scales on automating as much as possible, being is kind of quick to respond and accurate to respond, but also having the right elements of hospitality? Like, how do you square that peg?
Yeah. And like I said, subject matter expert, 3 months in the industry. So I won't speak like a complete
You've managed properties, so you've
yeah,
hospitality.
Yeah, fair. Okay. So my philosophy is that I think internally, like as a tool that has nothing to do with guest experience, let's just take like away AI messaging as an aside, because that's an easy thing that people are playing in. The average property manager has like 5 or 6. People talk about like their tech stack and all the apps they use. Like everything seems very still like manual, and you're in the driver's seat. Like for example, like you see how coding has changed with like GitHub releasing their Copilot, which is writing millions of lines of code for you. You see Shopify released Magic, which is writing descriptions, titles, like optimizing inventory, doing all of these kind of like having this assistant that works for you. I think that the next big unlock is not going to be is for AI to not even touch the hospitality side and actually just help owners be way more efficient at doing the things that take a lot of time. And the beauty of this industry is everything's connected via APIs. And then the AI has gotten smart enough to not only read APIs, but then write code to call on them. So, being able to text a chatbot that says, change my descriptions, or drop my cleaning fees by 20%, or write me a title for this listing. So just being able to enable the property manager to do a lot more with a lot less. I think that alone, even if it never touches hospitality, I could see people never wanting to use AI messaging for example.
Essentially, what I'm hearing is if it can get rid of all the desk job activities, you can actually focus more on the hospitality side.
Totally.
I see like 2 applications that I would love to have right now, and I've brought these up with some of the vendors that we use, but one of them is capacity-based housekeeping scheduling, because with our product, it's much more like hotel-like, but still obviously bigger units, they're apartments. And so we, certain buildings, a housekeeper will get X number of bedrooms, and it changes, and right now we have a calculator that we do on our own, and have kind of done like, it's not even automated, but it's just, a model in Excel. And then that transfers over to our operations management system. And it's that kind of, if we could take out that work, that would be so fantastic. And then also, because we do book by type, or the subunit model, having automatic tape chart optimizations, because we have someone right now that is constantly going in and playing Tetris. And so those 2 things would be so helpful. And I'm really hoping that potentially Breezeway is listening to this. But that's something that would free up a lot of our time. And it would remove some of the human error, that obviously gets made. And I think you're right. The guest messaging, component, it's interesting. I think we see it sometimes using it to translate into different languages. That's been helpful. But there is still, like, if you already have a team, I don't think that that's really where you might be pulling the most. We're getting the most use. But obviously, like you said, it's kind of like the easiest thing to start with.
For sure.
I'm curious, Sam, I think 2018, 2019 were the years where short-term rentals, specifically the arbitrage model, was really popular. Co-hosting or management models, super popular, obviously. And everyone was just trying to scale. They're like, get to scale, automate as much as possible. Don't talk to the guests. Don't do anything hospitality related. Just get to this big unit count, and to just, do pretty much anything that creates a lifestyle business. And we talked about this on my other podcast with Eric Moeller from Free Wild, but that was the old like days where I think like AI could have really probably like thrived. Like something like Bestie still to this day would have been perfectly used for that scenario. Not that it's not today, but now we have like this pull between vacation rental managers and short-term rental managers where everyone's kind of like debating on like, what do we call ourselves? What's the industry? You know, are we just separating by market? All this other stuff. And I want to kind of get your thoughts on the roadmap piece with Bestie, but also I don't know. There's such a now different focus on quality over quantity, where people are in the, like I was saying before COVID, really scale, automate, don't talk to the guests. Now it's really focusing on hospitality. Do you think, and I'm going to quote Robin Cragen from Moving Mountains at VRMA was talking about like, hey, why are we all talking about AI when we haven't really mastered these hospitality pieces? Where do you think like the roadmap for AI and hospitality kind of intersect? That's kind of my main question for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think that what like the current application of AI in this industry is like 0.01% what it's capable of. Like, and I mean that in that like if it's a really good word predictor that can write great answers, and that's what most people have seen, or it can help you rewrite your description or give you a few listing titles, like, and on the surface level, that's pretty helpful. But I think like the general, the biggest takeaway from that OpenAI Dev Day was, for me at least, was this AI assistant functionality where like it's capable of, Brandy, you mentioned like explaining to a person that they have to play Tetris with their calendar to make sure you're like fully optimized and completely full. Like that's something you would literally just explain to one of these OpenAI models, and it would just know that. It's essentially a human now that knows my one job is fill up these calendars and make sure that every single one is back to back and all the cleaners know what they need to know. And if anybody has any questions, they can message this bot if my cleaner needs to know an answer, and it knows everything. So like, I think the biggest thing that we're going to see is like this industry is built so well around having something like AI be really helpful because everything's already connected via these APIs, but we're still at the driver's seat. So if you want to change one protocol across 150 listings, there's no other way to do that other than going into each of those listings on the PMS, which of course is way more helpful than going into 10 OTAs. But the V1 evolution was going from like having all these OTAs to doing the PMS, right? And I think the next revolution is going to be literally plugging an AI into the PMS to do anything you need it to do just by talking to it. And that seems like a little abstract right now, but you're already seeing it in a lot of different industries. And I think that's where that's going to be the biggest unlock, where you can do a lot more with a lot less. And it could be as simple as descriptions and A/B testing listing titles, but it could be as complex as, hey, Sam, one of these guests said there's no toilet paper. Do you mind if I place an Amazon order to this address? It'll send it tomorrow, and I'll let the guest know it'll be there by 10 a.m. And I just click yes. Like that's the power of where it's going. We're not talking years, we're talking months.
You mean a Sojo order, right? Not a
right.
Sojo.
Yeah. My bad.
Yeah, I think it's one of the fun applications that we have started with is our own bot within our like Slack account. And so if you have a question about, like how many beds are in Factors Row 22, you can type that in and it'll tell you. And we're trying to get it to learn like all of our Google Drives and SOPs and things like that so that we can reduce the kind of workload that between our guest experience team and our operations team and our distribution team, because there's a lot of like confirming information and a lot of that, like, is this information old? Like, and so I think that's something that on like a smaller level that companies could also start doing, is using it just to like be another assistant for their own employees to like answer questions and reduce some of that friction on their teams.
Totally.
So there's an old kind of industry standard, and actually I'm curious, Brandy, if like where you guys are in the ratio of it all, but approximately one employee per 8 to 10 homes that you manage. That's probably more traditional vacation rental style, but how far can you guys stretch it with using AI, or what are the possibilities? Of course, there's going to be cleaning. Of course, there's going to be, the executives or the property recruitment team, but what all can be kind of covered so people have a little bit less on their plates?
Is that to me or to Brandy?
To you.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. Right, the AI expert, AI expert. Yeah, so I think that personally, like, I think that we could get our property management company to about 100 listings with a tool like Besty and with some of our kind of offshore support, which is obviously really common in the industry. But I think like the number one thing is being able to get back to guests and make sure that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the operation. But anything to do with putting together owner reports, adding any sort of merchandising of listings. I think I've talked to hosts that say, oh, this week we're revamping all of our listing titles and we want to A/B test them, and next week we're going through all of our amenities and those little things. But I think this AI is getting powerful enough to say, hey, if you added a pool, it looks like this could add increase your conversion rate by 22%. Or, hey, these 12 listings have, air conditioning and it looks like yours doesn't, but their booking rates are 89%. And actually giving you more of like a proactive, intelligent worker that's kind of always pinging you with things that you can run to make your business better, versus having to say, oh, I need to go back to my team and think of the ways that we're going to move the needle by 1 or 2%. You're just going to have this system that's kind of always running. And whether they're automations that we build or things that it's just kind of thinking of by itself, saying, hey, your description mentioned this, but it's not listed in your amenities. Would you like me to add it? And you're basically just going to have, if you can think of pulling from the most like advanced AI tool on the market, all catered around how do I up my occupancy and up my monthly revenue. I think that that's going to be the general tone, and you can use it for something as simple as messaging, or you can start using it as kind of like your co-pilot that you just talk to do things for you. And I think over time, that's going to result in a huge asymmetric advantage for people running their own shop without having to have too many employees. And I personally think we could get to, a bunch more listings than what we have now just by using a tool like this.
I'm curious, not to go into all the details because we're obviously a little short on time, but with OpenAI and the whole kind of chaos with inside of that, I know they're outside of our industry, but so many companies have spun out from OpenAI and ChatGPT and all this other stuff. What do you think, like where's the moat for AI? Like a lot of people, I know like you talked about communication is kind of the entry point, right? It's the easy problem to solve. It takes most time off of the operator's plate. Hence, as you saw in your own experience operating your own properties in Germany. But where does the moat become, especially now with OpenAI being the $90 billion company that it is, with kind of creating the wave of AI? I'm very curious where you think like the real big separation piece is now that Sam's back at the helm, but it's kind of been crazy to watch. So I would love to hear like high level overview.
Yeah. So, I mean, like for us specifically, like how we would differentiate against just like people using OpenAI.
Either that or just like where do you see it being more applied and where the big differentiators are going to be in the industry outside of communication. And I think like listing stuff, I think that's all really great and it's going to save a lot of time. Human capital is super important right now, as obviously it's still really hard to hire and find good people. But where's like the real differentiator moment that you guys see AI playing a role?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that we're most excited about is like let's say every user, whether they have 20 or 200 listings, represents thousands of reservations and like thousands of scenarios, right? And so if you think of this AI that's basically connecting via API to hundreds of thousands of listings, that within a very short period, it's pretty much seen everything. Like for every single scenario, it knows what the host did and how they acted and how they improved it. For every listing, it sees how it's done in sales and how it's improved over time. I think the biggest thing is like you're going to have, and the same thing that I think for Game Planner, I think they have built some sort of like proprietary system around making a better guest experience. That's going to be their, fine-tuned for the hospitality industry. I think the biggest edge for us is going to be essentially like when you plug into this AI that's all it knows is hospitality. Even if you haven't experienced this one specific issue before and it's the first time for you, this AI's seen it 100 times before. And so you're, by plugging into this system, basically kind of getting beamed up into this cloud of every single reservation around the world in all these scenarios. I think you're going to get a benefit from a lot of those kind of like elite practices that some of the best operators have done. So without, of course, keeping it anonymized, and you're not going to be like stealing IP from listing to listing, but generally speaking, having a system that's kind of seen it all and giving that into the hands of any operator, whether they have 5 or 500 listings. I think that's going to be a really meaningful kind of paradigm shift.
My mind is just like spinning on all the additional things. Like I've thought about AI before, but I haven't like kind of taken a step back and thought about all of the little bits and pieces. But from homeowner predictive models based on past performance or future, scraping competitors and how well they're doing and what they're doing well and how you can copy that and apply it to yourself or A/B test it versus what you're doing. There's just kind of endless amounts. So it also seems like there's a new AI company every day. So like, how do you approach what's going to actually impact your customers versus the shiny object of like, oh, that'd be really cool to do?
Yeah, I mean, our like big vision for this is like, I mean, Arlo, my co-founder, is calling it like recipes. But it's this idea where if you think of like you said, your mind is spinning. What you might think of to leverage something like this is much different than what Will might think of, or the things you come up with. Knowing that you can essentially talk to this AI to do anything in your PMS. So I think the coolest thing for us is building this like community of recipes where the second you hook up to this AI system, here's like 27 different things that people in the community have done, and here are the actual metrics. So like Sam from Germany did these 3 things, click this to engage it. His impact was 7% increase in bookings. The Romy team had these 4 things and they published them, and maybe there's an incentive to the people who publish them into the community, whether that's like a rev share, you know what I mean, or some sort of discount on the platform, where you're going to have this whole community of people that are, you look at our website, like we just thought of 7 or 8 scenarios. Like one of them I thought, it's like, how good is this thing? Well, what if I asked it, hey, look up each of my listings, look up a 1 mile radius. What are the events happening in the next 2 weeks? Okay, now put those events in the description and then delete them after the event has passed, like just within a couple clicks. So you're going to have this insane amount of creativity in the same way where you open out a text to image bot and see what people come up with. Like you've seen these images people come up with are insane. I think you're actually going to have the same thing, but for a really productive set of recipes. And I like that word. I mean, maybe we'll workshop it when we launch it, but you get the idea. It. Yeah. And you can build part of the brand. If you're an operator, you see people selling courses with their like best practices. Well, like plug in all your PDF courses in, your transcripts, and then have an AI assistant and say, what would this person do? Or here's my 10 recipes, and you get access. So I think that the industry is actually really going to benefit pragmatically from having a system that plugs into the API to do everything. Because otherwise you're in there manually doing things. And if you've ever updated your PMS, like even one thing across 50 listings, it takes hours. We're talking about something that takes clicks.
So annoying. We have
annoying.
Anytime we're like, we have like one tiny little thing to change, and you're like, oh my God, all of these listings. It's so annoying. So
totally.
Yes, I can't wait to see all these things come to life.
So if you have any of the listeners have any ideas of good ways to automate monotonous tasks that you're doing every day, let Sam know, and he'll build it overnight. So it'll be delivered the next day, guaranteed.
He'll whip up a recipe for you.
Hey, there it is.
We'll cook it up.
I love it. Well, it's crazy. I'm as you're talking, Sam, I'm reflecting on our episode with Ryan Bailey from TravelNet Solutions and talking about like what does it take to build tech like under the hood, right? Everyone thinks like, oh, these tech companies, right? And shout out to TravelNet for being one of our great sponsors, but hearing what you guys are building, it's not just like a, hey, copy this, move it over and just like apply it to short-term rentals. And like, I really do love the actual operator experience that you bring. Plus like you follow along AI into like real applications that drive revenue. I think a lot of companies that if they're listening to this or watching, a lot of AI companies just try to like, all right, let's get $7 a listing and do their communication. All right, that's it. Like that's their kind of like, you guys actually bring revenue in the way you kind of foreshadow it. So really, big kudos to you and Arlo for what you guys are building and the recipes you're whipping up. Had to use that one more time.
Yeah, maybe that sticks. I guess. Yeah. I mean that you'll see it.
The besties are cooking up some recipes. It's no big deal. No big deal. But nice. No, anyways, it got me thinking. So like what you guys are building under the hood, obviously I think this is one of many episodes we'll have you on, as you know, AI is going to be probably buzzing for a while. For the listeners, the live viewers, you know, shout out to Jeremy Weiss out in Israel for always tuning in. Yes, we are dressed up for winter, by the way. It's already cold for me here in Colorado. I'm sure it's probably cold for Michael, maybe not Brandy. But I would love to just, you know, where do you think, in the sense of, you know, for the listeners, viewers, where they go, what's the thing to do if they're curious about learning more about AI and kind of the actual, you know, under the hood recipes behind it. Sorry, last use of recipes.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, I've done this myself. We did this before starting the company. Even was just trying everything. You know, it takes the whole promise of these AI startups is that they're super easy to integrate, and that they should be. You know, so if you spend yourself taking more than 5 minutes to set up a listing, you know, forget about it. But there's a lot of these tools emerging on all the marketplaces. You know, all the big PMSs. And so I would recommend. It's actually pretty fun to A/B test them. You know, how did Besty respond? How did these other AI apps respond, and then see which one you like the most. Ultimately, our philosophy is like right now, the low hanging fruit being AI messaging, the one with the highest quality is going to win. And then, like I said, our bigger roadmap is it's going to be much more broad and like more scope than just messaging. But so I highly recommend try them all, do the free trials, ask for free trial extensions. They'll always say yes. They will always say yes because there's plenty of us competing for the same customers, and always negotiate on price. And have some fun with it, see what it can do, and just know, like, over the next couple of months, like, a lot of movement, but overall, I think the winner, like we said, what we're banking on is being that thing that's tied to the PMS that can do anything just by talking to it. And I think that's where the biggest win is. But in the meantime, you know, have fun with everything out there. And if you want to try it, obviously, you know, you can stop by anytime.
So Sam said, basically, if your other apps that you're trying don't give you a free trial extension, go to Besty because they will. So.
yeah. Maybe shoot myself in the foot there. But it's
okay. Well, you have quite a few listeners that will probably take you up on that. So thank you again, Sam, for taking the time with us this morning. Super excited to not only have met you at VRMA, but to get to hang out with you here in about a week. And of course, for all of our live viewers and our recap listeners, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe. And of course, we'll see you guys all again next week.